Hello and welcome to Dyer Consequences here on Unprecedented TV. I'm Claire Dyer and this is the channel committed to asking the questions mainstream media refuses to ask. We bring you uncensored conversations, independent voices, information you're not being given elsewhere, and give a platform to voices that are too often ignored. So please do like, share, and more importantly, subscribe to us, Unprecedented TV, so we can keep bringing you the uncensored news. So today I'm joined, or will be joined, by Cassie from the National Residents Association to discuss 5G, smart infrastructure, and the accelerating push towards digital ID. We'll look at why communities are pushing back, how digital identity systems link to biometric and facial recognition technologies, how digital currency is definitely going to be expected to follow very closely behind once digital ID comes in. This conversation is about consent, civil liberties, and the long-term consequences of technologies that are being rolled out without meaningful public debate. What governments are not fully disclosing, and what does this mean for everyday people? So today I'd like to welcome to the show Cassie.
Hello, Claire. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you? You good?
All right. Yeah, busy. And we're both pulling our hair out.
Yeah, I'm surprised we've got any left, really, to be honest. But yeah,
You've got a lot more than I have, Cassie. That's for sure.
well,
It's everything's unfolding really fast at the moment, isn't it? It
yeah.
feels like everything's coming at us from all directions. And for me personally, obviously started 6 years ago with COVID vaccines, and then very quickly it was ULEZ, which still fighting now. And now, I mean, I've always been aware, obviously, about the 5G. And then obviously the whole digital infrastructure, but now find myself personally fighting this as well, which is why I wanted you to come back on so that we could try and break really the programming that I believe is still around 5G. Oh, that's a conspiracy. And you are the person who I would say is the expert in this field.
I wouldn't go that far, Claire. There's many experts out there, but
you're the only expert I personally know. So, and I would say you're very knowledgeable, and you do a lot of good work up and down this country, and I think you're very good at educating people.
I try. Hopefully we can do today. So yeah. Well, I mean, on that topic though, Claire, I think one of the things is what we're going through at the moment is something called the fourth industrial revolution. And a lot of the general public don't really know what that is, but they will see changes such as these big, huge 5G towers. You know, you'll have lots of cameras, surveillance, and, you know, cameras in shopping, supermarkets, those kind of things. Radical changes, but they're sort of like incrementally coming in, but at quite an unprecedented rate. So the fourth industrial revolution is more leaning on artificial intelligence, AI, and a lot of people are becoming very addicted to ChatGPT and these kind of things now, which speeds up the process for a lot of people. However, it has its consequences, and such as 5G, for an example, the rollout started probably in around the COVID era. And
they were literally putting them up at night, weren't they? During lockdown.
I was living in London. at the time. And I remember going to the park one day and I came out and I thought to myself, what the hell is this huge black thing? I had no idea. And it was just so tall. And, you know, the ones on the screen here, they're sort of, you know, small cell kind of radio waves, but they're usually on an apparatus, which you can see there. But you also have your 5G monopole masts as well, which are the very big ones, which I think we'll have a screenshot on the next slide. So that is a monopole mast. Now, a lot of people are seeing those on the streets, but what people don't realise is that these things cost electricity. So that's for number one. Now, somebody did an analysis on this, and one of the easiest ways that I can possibly explain their breakdown and their potential sort of output of electricity that was being used is 72 to 75 houses power. So that's unprecedented. That's just for one of these monopole masts.
Mm.
So yes, but 5G in its totality is essentially a rollout to create what we would call a smart city. So we'll take you through that because I've got some slides in a minute.
Yeah, you have a lot of people that straight away, as soon as you mention 5G, they're like, well, don't you want better phone service? Don't you want to be able to download, that video a lot quicker? And I always make a joke of it and say, it's not so that you can download your porn in half a second. I feel like we are becoming a dumbed down nation where we're so glued to our phones, and I would actually say service has got worse, not better. But everyone, we are a society that are obsessed by our phones. We use our phones for everything. That there's smartphones now, and everyone, it's Amazon, it's Netflix, it's this video, that video, computer games, and I think that, yeah, we are becoming quite dumbed down, and I think we're becoming lazy as well. And we think that all of this is for our convenience. So it's trying to convince people that actually we're being misled into thinking that this is to make our lives easier.
Yeah. Well, the whole backdrop to it is that 5G then interlinks with a smart city, and there's something called an Internet of Things. Now, people are starting to see sensors. Now, 5G towers will transmit data. So for the Internet of Things, it's all about transmitting data. At the moment, I think we have about 41,000, I read somewhere, 5G towers dotted all around the country. And if the studio could possibly show this article with Ofcom, we are looking at increasing that rollout. So Ofcom have just done a deal with the mobile phone providers. Again, it's costing, it's 1.5 billion. I missed it there, but it's a lot of data. So with that means that we're going to need more to be able to cope with this demand. And I've made a little 5G. It's actually a little AI video. So but it really is kind of an explainer video for the audience. So I was just wondering if we could maybe put that on.
That's the
next big thing in wireless communication that's sparking both excitement and concern. While it promises lightning-fast internet, there are some serious questions we need to address about its safety and implications. First, let's dive into the health concerns. The International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, or ICNIRP, sets the safety guidelines for EMF exposure. But here's something interesting. Some scientists argue these guidelines might not tell the whole story. Several independent studies have raised red flags about potential biological effects from prolonged exposure to electromagnetic fields, especially at the higher frequencies used in 5G. But health isn't the only concern here. Think about this. 5G infrastructure requires a dense network of small cells, creating a perfect framework for unprecedented surveillance. With geofencing capabilities and the Internet of Things, every connected device becomes a potential tracking point. Your smart meter could reveal when you're home, your shopping habits, even your daily routines. Recently, there was a groundbreaking case in the UK that caught my attention. A planning inspectorate actually rejected a 5G mast installation, citing health concerns, something that rarely happens. This decision could set an important precedent for future installations. As 5G continues to roll out, we're looking at a future where these networks could become even more pervasive. The infrastructure would enable not just faster internet, but a complete digital overlay of our physical world. And here's where it gets interesting. This network could significantly boost artificial intelligence capabilities. How? By providing the massive data throughput and minimal latency that AI systems need to process information in real time. Speaking of AI, 5G could be the missing link that enables widespread autonomous systems, from self-driving cars to smart city infrastructure. But at what cost to our privacy and health? Here's the most concerning part. Most of us weren't even consulted about these changes happening in our communities. The rollout has been swift and often under the radar. So what can we do about it? First, we need to demand proper health impact assessments. These should be independent, comprehensive, and publicly available. Second, we can get involved in local planning decisions. Your voice matters when it comes to mast installations in your area. Third, we can push for better regulations around surveillance capabilities and data collection. It's not about stopping technological progress. It's about ensuring it's implemented safely and ethically. We need to ask the hard questions now, before we're too far down this path. Write to your local representatives, join community groups focused on this issue, and stay informed about developments in your area. Remember, technology should serve us, not the other way around. We have the right to understand and influence how these systems are implemented in our communities. The future of 5G doesn't have to be a dystopian one, but that depends on the actions we take today. Let's ensure this technology is thoroughly tested, transparently deployed, and truly serves the public interest. After all, it's not just about faster internet. It's about the kind of world we want to live in.
See, what concerns me is, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, and I've found myself having to learn very, very quickly. But what I see is that they need all this 5G. They need the data centers. They need the battery farms and the solar farms, so that all of this information, the surveillance, the facial recognition, the biometrics, everything that's going to be smart, the electric, all has to be fed to one central hub, which is it's essentially going to be that smart city infrastructure. That's then obviously your digital ID, which will then be the digital currency. So it's all controlled, and they need this technology for that. But yet they're misleading us by making it think that all of this is for our convenience, and yet everything that we're saying is just a conspiracy. But it isn't.
No, and I mean,
like,
you look at like, I think it was yesterday, they've just made huge changes to the planning national infrastructure projects. So everything that you've just mentioned there mainly would sit in a category of national infrastructure projects. Now, I haven't had the time to read through this document like as of yesterday, I only seen it today, but it goes to show that it's hugely important to this new fourth industrial revolution, which is what we are working towards right now, which leans on artificial intelligence. I mean, expands into things like NHSX as well. And the general public, I mean, they've got no idea what NHSX is, but essentially what it means is a digitalization of the National Health Service. So, if we cast our minds back to people with COVID and they weren't allowed to go to the doctors and things like that, it was very inconvenient for people when they needed medical assistance of some description and they weren't able to go. And that is the sort of autonomous realms that we're possibly moving into, alongside also solar farms. Smart farming is another component which is not really being discussed very much, but that comprises of, a lot of automation.
What I've found just in my own community is how a lot of what they're saying is, and what they're doing is a massive contradiction. So take the solar farms and the battery farms. How is that good for the environment? They are literally trying to eat up our farmland and our green land and our green belt, whether it's with solar farms, lithium battery farms, with housing. There's going to be nothing left. So to me, that's a complete contradiction to the whole net zero agenda. bit like them chopping down part of the Brazilian rainforest to build a road so that they could all fly in on private jets, drive down that road in diesel and petrol engines to discuss how we, the ordinary people, have got to make all these sacrifices and changes. And I don't understand how people don't see how that just doesn't make any sense. And then when it comes to 5G, you know, I've had my own issues where they want to put a 25-meter 5G tower that is essentially in the middle of the countryside. It's right on top of residential properties. It's right next to a school.
Yeah.
And it's going through on what's called permitted development because there's already a existing 8-meter 4G tower. And how I've explained it to people is, I've said it's like me getting planning permission to build a single story 10-foot extension off the back of my house, and then 4 or 5 years later deciding to then build a 2-story extension and going out 50 foot out the back and saying, oh yeah, but I already had planning, and the council saying, yeah, that's fine, that's allowed, which would never ever happen. And I don't understand how these telecommunication companies can get away with that. I also don't, do you know what? I also think that the councils aren't very informed because I think these telecommunication companies are kind of confusing the law, and it's almost like deceitful planning. And then my other concern is we've had one go in. Obviously, we have planning for, or not planning because it's not gone through planning, but they've been automatically given permission to put in another that's less than a quarter of a mile. And my compromise is, as again, I've said to people, one 5G tower in the middle of the countryside, away from, mass population and residential properties is fine. But when you know that they're going to be putting these up like one here, one here, one here, one here, we are then going to be in, essentially, because people liken them to microwaves as well. Well, you use a microwave. And again, my argument is, but we don't have our heads in a running microwave 24/7. By the time they've finished rolling out all of this 5G everywhere, we are going to be living 24/7 in a microwave. Also, from my understanding, that if they're close to residential properties, obviously they have Wi-Fi, that then boosts the EMF levels. Obviously, these 5G towers then obviously send data to each other, which I believe, again, boost the EMF even more. And yet there is a court case that actually was won, wasn't there, which is it the Thomas versus Cheltenham Borough, that has proved that if you have metal implants, the EMF from 5G towers can affect you. And yet everyone's ignoring it. Councils are ignoring it. Well, most councils, government are ignoring that.
Well, I would say there's a shift, a slight shift here since that court case, because I worked with somebody who was a huge part of the back scenes of that court case with Stephen Thomas, and there's a mini team of these people. And she wrote, finalised this letter called How Close is Too Close. And it sort of explained about exclusion zones and how close they should be to people's residential dwellings. So, since then, it's been very interesting because there was Swansea Council, the councillors at Swansea Council requested for the halting of 5G.
Right.
Which can actually be found. I think it was in May. This footage, and it's on their live council footage, which I can dig out the timings for you, Claire, and I can send it over so you can share that with people so that they can watch that for verification. Because there was health concerns by councillors in that particular council that stipulated, because of the Stephen Thomas court case and the potential connotations to it and the health risks, they requested to halt it. So since then, the other news is that there was a planning inspectorate, which, for anybody that doesn't know the legalese of the planning laws, what happens is one of these masts goes in for planning, and like obviously you were saying just a minute ago, as a normal, if it's never been there before, it would go in for normal planning.
Yeah.
And it would go into the council, and then people would have the right to object on the council portal. Then what would happen is the council would make a decision. Now, if the council say, no, we don't want that, and they refuse it, what then happens, and it's the same similar sort of scenario, what's happening with these solar farms, data centers and battery energy storage systems, all of these kind of planning applications as well, falls into may go over to somebody called what would be known as a planning inspectorate, which is kind of like a national government higher sort of echelon of planning. So there was a small, what we'd call a small cell antenna, which is a very small, and they're usually placed on buildings. So, they're, like rectangular kind of size, and they're just put on buildings. You see them on the motorways, you see them in, on big structure frames where it's not a monopole mast. And there was a planning inspectorate that refused 5G small cell antenna, which is much smaller in size than one of these big, huge monopole masts, on the basis of the Stephen Thomas versus Cheltenham Borough court case on health grounds, which is it's huge. So that's starting to show now. You're starting to build up that picture that this is quite serious. But the one new thing that's recently come into the realms of the council's taking it even more seriously. And I was wondering if the studio might be able to put up the Castle Point Essex
The
literature. Yeah, Castle Point.
Council Essex. The next one, I believe. This is the one.
That's right. So this is Castle, and I'm going to share this link with you so that people can go and check it out for themselves, because I think it's very important that a council have now acknowledged about the Stephen Thomas court case, and they're sort of saying, public raised issues with regards to the impact of EMF. So EMF actually stands for electromagnetic radiation frequency. So
what I'm just going to say as well, Cassie. So this is because this is all whole linked. As soon as you start saying about EMF and 5G, people just go, that's a conspiracy. And then they go, get your tinfoil hat out. And the way I've tried to explain it to people, again, in layman's terms, is saying, when you're going for an X-ray, they make you wear the lead aprons. When you go for an MRI scan or anything like that, they ask you to take out any metal piercings. I'm pretty sure most people have seen the odd video. Funny enough, I saw one the other day where a worker stepped over the line in an MRI scanning unit, and the keys, his metal keys, got whipped out and just went flying across the room. And that's how I try to explain it to people, because this is exactly the same. They have proven and won in court, and you're telling us that a planning inspectorate actually turned down a 5G because of EMF, and this case where they've proven that it can affect people with metal implants, but also including hearing aids.
Yeah, correct. And you've got to think about people with pacemakers. You have to think about people with fillings. You have to think about people that might have, metal implants of some description in their body, right? So, I mean, there's a whole, so you don't know when one of these towers is going near somebody's property, who's assessing, who, if anybody's got any of these things.
So in my case, obviously, it didn't go through planning because they already have an 8-meter 4G mast installed. So this is going through as an upgrade, and the council's saying there's nothing we can do about it because it's just an upgrade. I said, well, an upgrade to just over 25 meters is a hell of a lot different to 8 meters. It's obviously now 5G. They have been provided with all of this evidence, the court case. And yet, although my councillors agree and are seeing what we're saying, they're kind of saying their hands are tied. Not only that, this particular company, 3G UK Limited, do not have any safety standards. And again, how I've tried to explain it in my terms, layman terms, is that's like me driving around with no car insurance.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be allowed to do that. So how is this company, how are they being allowed to work with no safety standards. Like, who's liable if an accident was to happen, or, you know, that 5G tower was to catch fire, or whilst they were installing it, there was a car accident due to their traffic management? Who's liable? And yet this is proven, and I'm still not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why. Is it?
I think a lot to do with it is, number one, is public perception of how people are perceiving this.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we've gone around different parts of the country and we've spoken to people who live near 5G towers, and basically they've kind of said, well, you know, I'm getting headaches, I'm getting tinnitus, and, you know, I have these, you know, things are happening after that's been installed. But by that time, it's kind of a bit like, well, you know, obviously you're more on the back foot of trying to get rid of one of these things, moreover, than before it goes up. Yeah. But people are suffering with migraines, with brain fog, you know, with these kind of, you know, we can't say definitively that is because of the tower, but people have given us that observational analysis, like, well, you know, we think maybe it is because that's been there for like 6 months now, and since maybe that's kind of long, they've had kind of different symptoms, as it were.
I've heard this a lot. I've heard this a lot from so many people, because that's the other thing as well. When you do have an element of some kind of profile, which I do, I will read the comments. I can get thousands of comments on a particular post, not like every one, but I will read the comments, and I will have a lot of people. It doesn't matter what it is, but in this particular case, you know, there's people from all over the country who have said, I had one installed literally right outside my house. They didn't think anything of it at the time, and then within weeks or so, they started experiencing things like tinnitus or headaches or flu-like symptoms. And again, you know, there isn't the actual evidence to prove it, but it's a little bit like with the vaccines, unfortunately. You know, people took them in good faith, and now you've got so many people saying, I had a heart attack after, I've now got myocarditis, I've now got rheumatoid arthritis, and a whole combination of things, or I now have multiple blood clots, and they know it was down to that. They've even had doctors off record say it was, but nothing's going out there publicly.
Well, this is where I see 5G now as a tiny little bit different, because, you know, sometimes with things like that, it's very hard to sort of see something. But with 5G, it's more visual. You can see that it's there, at least within your body. Unless you're feeling it yourself, it's very hard to kind of prove. And I mean, I guess in a sense, with some of the symptoms with 5G, it's like, you know, you will only probably experience that when you might have one outside your house, you know, because you don't know about it before. But this is why we've done loads of readings in a variety of different parts of the country, which show that it is extremely high, you know, with some different variable meters to assess the radiation frequency that is being emanated from these towers. Now, ultimately, they can go up and down, so they can fluctuate. You don't know unless you inspect it.
And what I also found out recently as well, that they are that desperate, and this is the question, I'm like, why are they that desperate to have these up absolutely everywhere? If it's just about progress, it's just about, you know, just technology and your phone and everything else that goes with it. Why are people even forced to have it on their land? Because I've just recently found out of somebody not that far from me owns a bit of land, and she did not. And this particular 5G is one that looks like a pylon. So it looks like pylons with all the railings round it, big electrical boxes on a massive concrete slab right on her land. She didn't want it. She refused it. She had a compulsory purchase put on it. So they literally have just taken part of her land, whacked this on, got right of access across it, ruined her land. And I'm just, how are they managing to get away with that? How do you have no rights in that respect? Why is it that you know, even some properties, like commercial properties, have had no choice but to have these installed on their roofs?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's another question in its entirety. Compulsory purchases,
it's a bit of a reach too far, isn't it? Even that, to me, is saying, when it comes to this infrastructure, you have no rights.
Yeah.
We're going to do it regardless. Even if it's your property, your land, we're going to take it anyway, or we're going to do it anyway. That to me seeks desperation. All I see is that the whole infrastructure that, like you said, we've already said it before, the data centers, the 5G. I mean, look at it. I mean, they're ugly as well. They're an absolute monstrosity. The one we've just had installed as well, you can see it across the entire valley. It's just ruined the landscape. You know, it does affect the wildlife as well. It does affect trees. People report all the time that where these are installed that closely to trees, that section of the leaves, they die.
Yes, that's correct. We've got evidence to prove that as well. Actually, we've got loads of people done that in
and so therefore, it's breaking that mental block with people to say, well, you accept that, oh, look, the trees right next to this are dead. Yes, obviously, certain things like not having safety standards, you can't argue that. You can't argue the fact that we wouldn't be allowed to extend our property without putting in planning permission. So why are they allowed to get away with all of this? We need to break through that mental block with people.
Well, we've found a lot of success when we've reached out with the blue leaflet that we made a very long time ago now. We've had a lot of success. We give very clear instructions to people of how they can object. Now, the thing is it's about educational things, because people don't want these things. Like you said, it's a monstrosity. Now, there's something in property law which basically means that, you know, that everybody has a right to light. So, for an example, if some big, huge monstrosity is going to be going outside your house, you have a right to that not blocking your light, your view, right? But a lot of people don't know these things. So, you know, again, that goes back to why we need to, you know, reject this. Now, this could be also devaluing people's property.
Yes, it actually does. I believe.
And I like to err on the side of caution with saying that per se, but there is that
the same
potential that it could do that as well.
It's also the same with the solar farms and battery farms as well. They have the potential to devalue. But you know, again, even with the battery, the lithium, you know, these containers, you know, they are literally putting in planning for acres and acres on.
So these last couple of weeks, I'll tell you about some of the applications I know about, right? So there's data center. So everything beyond 5G, the surveillance, the cameras, the sensors, so all of this is transmitting data. You have to think about this whole new industrial revolution is about data. So whether that's your digital ID, again, that requires data. Everything goes back to requiring more data. So with that, we need more sort of machinery to be able to make that system function in the way that they are intending for it to function. And that means that data centers are a key component to all of this, because everything goes back to a data center. So anything in the cloud with your iCloud, your phone, or it goes up to the cloud, but it's stored within a data center. And people don't realize how much land these things are occupying as well. So funnily enough, the UK is planning on rolling out another 100 data centers. Now, there was a planning application that went in, I think, in near Liverpool area, and it was for about 380,000 square feet of a data centre. And that's just one. Then I was told of another one that's going to be built in Scotland. And these are huge.
Not far from me, I believe, that just went through as well.
Well, we've got a new leaflet. I'll show you. I'll put if it would be all right for the studio to put it on the screen, because again, it's lack of education, lack of awareness. People don't understand until something like this is happening on their doorstep.
Is this the data centers what every community should know? Yes, this is the one.
Yeah. So we're kind of like wanting to show people here. So within a data center, what happens is there's so many systems in there that they need cooling down. So they They have like what we would call an open loop system and a closed loop system. So an open loop system is like a research, like always continually taking more water in order to keep these systems cool, because they have to keep them cool because otherwise they catch on fire. There's
They
a
need water, basically.
Basically, yeah, just to keep the systems very, very cool. Now, a closed loop system, albeit it sounds great, it's basically recycling of the same loads of water, which could be hundreds up to thousands and thousands and thousands of liters of water, depending on the size of the data center. And it'll be recycled and it'll be going around the data center. And then we say, well, that sounds all right. That sounds okay. But what if a system breaks? You are going to then need to refill that up. So what we want to do now is start asking the water companies, where is that water going to come from? Number one. And then if we let the community know, number two, like, are you in agreement with this? Number three is the electricity component to them is just absolutely unbelievable. So obviously
it uses a lot of electric.
That's right. So every footprint, everything that we do on AI or ChatGPT or whatever, anything that relates to data, we will require a data center somewhere along the line, whether that's for your digital ID. So if you think about digital ID, they want to bring that fully into being 2029. But actually, these data centers, they need these data centers by 2029 to be ready to go as well.
Of course, they need the solar and the battery farms for the electric, because the national grid isn't equipped for this.
Well, battery energy storage, so with the whole renewable energy side of it, so on that component, if you think about data, like, so battery and solar farms, new application, this is just one area has just gone in that I've been told about. We're going to do a campaign on it. 900, I'll just put this into context, 900 football pitches in size is going to be this solar farm. So let's just think, Claire, right? Let's just think about what's happening right now. The rain, it's raining outside. It could be snowing in the minute. It could be, whatever. How is all of that going to be beneficial if we're going to be building solar farms of this magnitude across the entirety of the country? So I'm seeing solar farms, and I'm sure most people are starting to see solar farms when they drive down the motorways, or they're just cropping up. And this is exactly what we're having. So,
and then what's the shelf life as well?
So about 20 how on average. So then you're going to need to replace that. So then there's all that wastage from the solar panels. So how are you going to recycle that? So with a wind turbine blade, that takes about 1,000 tons of concrete per wind turbine.
And this is where I said the whole thing's a contradiction, because they're pushing all of this under, it's very green energy, but to actually put it all into place or even dispose of it is not green or environmentally friendly at all.
And the irony is people don't want these things on their doorstep, right? A lot, like with anything, most things they don't want on their doorstep.
I'm just going to make a little bit of a joke, because the latest thing with our planning development as well, again, Greenbelt, wanting to put 650 homes, is the latest nickname is NIMBY. Not in my backyard. Now that's the thing. Nobody wants them. Oh yeah. We all support solar and all of this, but as soon as it goes up, and it's their view taken away, they don't want it. But
it's funny that, and then you can put it somewhere else. They say,
put it somewhere else. Where do you want to put it? But the fact is, this is going on everywhere. It's not just a case of not my backyard. It's a case of not anyone's backyard, because they're taking up so much of our land. They're basically stealing our land one way or another for all of these different means, and pushing it under the guise of net zero for our convenience, for our safety. But ultimately, actually, the whole infrastructure is for this whole push for smart cities.
Yeah.
And people are starting to realise that slowly, but not quick enough.
Well, let's just put this into context, right? So we're the 3rd/4th most heavily surveilled country in the world, right? So all of these new cameras, on average, and I say on average because it is quite variable depending on the camera type, etc., are around about £7,000 from buying to installing, and then obviously you're going to need maintenance thereafter. So if we're going to be going and just rolling out all of these cameras everywhere, which we are doing at an unprecedented level, that then means there's more electricity. That then means there's more maintenance.
Yeah.
That then means that, so why, and then you're seeing like cutbacks in the, is there cutbacks in the police, for an example? Why are we seeing all of this?
This is exactly what I've been saying. And all of this stuff is leading us into giving us the solution. Like you said, there's not enough funding. There's not enough police on our streets. They're not attending to crimes, mainly burglaries, shop theft, all of that. And then they give you the solution of, for example, where near I am, Croydon the police have just started using their facial recognition cameras to catch that said criminal. And everyone's thinking, oh yeah, thank God, it's great. But that's ultimately not what it's going to be used for. It's so that you don't protest against it.
And this is the thing, you see, this is right. So when you think about protesting, people going to these protests or things like that they might, what does that mean? Because they're being surveilled in city centres now as well.
Every single time they go there.
Every single time this is happening, people are being monitored, tracked, traced, surveilled. And I mean, this is what this whole new era is about. It's about tracking and tracing. So if we even cast our minds back to the tracking and tracing, it's the same thing. And again, why do we need so many cameras? Why do we need that? Why do we need so many cameras?
Of so many different things, whether it's CCTV, ANPR, ULEZ.
Exactly. And you think about all the things that you said with regards to the solar farms, right? So all of that, you can see how much land that's taking away, yet we want to build 1.5 million new homes as well. So we're decreasing our land space with solar farms, wind farms, battery energy storage systems. There's 26 renewable energy types, right, which all are taking up land. Add in the data center, 100 new data centers, then add in small mini nuclear reactors, then add in hydrogen facilities, and then add in, 1.5 million new homes. But if we went to war, what would happen to our food supply?
Well, exactly, because we're not going to be self-sufficient. And as one of the slogans is, control the food, you control the people. And that's another one of the reasons why they're going after the farmers.
Yeah.
What do you think the solution is? Because in my opinion, I keep saying the technology's ready, but the infrastructure is not complete. Because everyone keeps saying, we've already got digital ID. We're already being tracked. Someone said, I disagreed. They said, your phone, basically. You've got facial recognition on your phone. But right now, what I said, the one difference is not everything is centralized to that. Your banking isn't controlled by that. You can choose not to have facial recognition. You can still go into a shop. This particular person doesn't believe that it's ever going to get to worst case scenario where we're going to be completely controlled because to that degree, because it will make what they do implement will make us think that actually we won, but we haven't. So he thinks that we're being scaremongered into believing worst case scenario. But either way, being pushed to really a full electric, where it's electric vehicles that can still be remotely controlled. They can be shut off at a moment's notice. Do you know what I mean? And having everything to one central hub, I think isn't going to bode well in the future anyway. So I think that the infrastructure is not fully complete yet.
No, it's not. So it's probably about 85.
What do you think people should be doing?
I think people should be monitoring what is going on in their area. Now, we hear a lot of people going, I don't like this or I don't like that. Well, you have to take action in some way, shape or form, whether it's like campaigning against that solar farm that you don't want. You need to bring people together under like a common denominating topic, or maybe a variety of topics. I mean, that could be like people running around with machetes in your local area. I mean, that's happened in one of the areas, the people that I've worked with, right? And, you know, a lot of residents were scared naturally, you know, because of that situation. And these kind of things are happening all over the country. So whether it's about a 5G topic, whether it's about solar farm data, whatever the topic, it doesn't matter. Anything to bring people together, because if they do take us to war, we need to be kind of interlinked with our communities.
Which they are talking about already.
That's right. So we're in a situation now where it's called Blizzrig, and I did talk about, I would say about 4 months ago. And I said at that talk, I said, we're in a situation now where they're just throwing everything at us. And basically it's multifaceted warfare where they just throw everything at you and then they just create a flash war. That's where we are, right? So when I seen that coming out on the news the other day, it came as absolutely no surprise to me whatsoever. And that's why more than ever now is the absolutely right time to get people together, to work together in your community. I mean, wouldn't it just be amazing if everybody realised that, oh my God, we've got all these solar farms, where are we going to have our food next year if anything were to happen? Why don't we start going planting in our local park or things like that? You know what I mean?
We'll be eating bugs, Cassie.
Well,
And genetically modified food that's come out of a lab. I think that's what they want us all eating, don't they?
Klaus Schwab's, Klaus Schwab. And I mean,
and also, I don't think they want as many of us. We're just useless eaters, aren't we?
Apparently so. But we have been massively underestimated. I must tell you that, though. I think they think we're bloody stupid. Honestly.
I do agree, though. I mean, just so far in our community, and there hasn't, I mean, on different topics, there's been maybe some different people involved, but generally it's the core same handful of people, you know, from still stopping ULEZ. So we still don't have the cameras. We don't really have any real cameras around here of any kind. We're quite lucky. We are a village. We are in Greater London. But we probably have the least probably amount of cameras ever. You know, we've already fought against a solar farm that was literally a minute from my house, where we managed to pause a battery farm. I'm not going to say stopped because I think they may have appealed that. But we are fighting against it. Now we're looking at, obviously, most of the community are now wanting to fight against the planning development of 650 homes for the simple fact that we don't have the infrastructure. It will literally cripple us. And obviously we are now fighting a 5G that's going up literally in the countryside, right on top of houses, will be an absolute eyesore, and it's right next to the local school as well. So I definitely feel just where I live in my little village, we're being hit with a lot of things. Like I feel like it's coming at us all at once, and it is overwhelming. But at the same time, it wouldn't feel so overwhelming if we actually had more people involved. But we are kind of seeing results, and we are obviously trying to work with the council. It's trying to educate the council, because obviously I don't know enough, so I'm still having to learn. But I have been able to learn enough to give enough information over to my councillors that I think they're on board, and they can see the evidence that I'm providing to them to at least try and hopefully push back against it. You know, I think if every single village, town, borough did this across the country, I think
it would have this huge ripple effect to be able to push back, not just locally but also nationally, right? Because you can't just expect things to change if we don't do something to help that change. And because this is a warlike footing that we actually probably are being moved into, we have to prepare for the worst and pray for the best. I'm not joking you when I say that. Yeah,
we do have another video. It's the drone. Yes, with the drone, which I think we're showing. You can
the 1 million drones could fill UK skies. A revolution in logistics and safety, or an unprecedented threat to our privacy. The sky is on the brink of a transformation, with drones poised to take on roles in everything from emergency response to package delivery and infrastructure inspection. The potential is immense. Ben Carter, a technology advocate, explains, "We're talking about using drones for everything from inspecting wind turbines to finding lost hikers. Public support for these uses is over 70%. Imagine a drone hovering near a massive wind turbine, its camera providing a safe and efficient inspection, or a search and rescue unit using thermal imaging to locate someone in a remote area. This is the future supporters envision." However, recent surveys show the British public is divided. While most are positive about the technology's potential, nearly half are concerned about misuse and privacy. A recent poll highlights this split, with 68% seeing a positive impact, yet 48% expressing significant privacy concerns. These concerns aren't just theoretical. Civil liberties expert Julia Ray notes, "We've already seen police forces use drones to monitor public parks during lockdowns, blurring the line between safety and surveillance." The 2018 Gatwick incident, where rogue drones grounded hundreds of flights, showed the chaos just two machines can cause. On a domestic level, Ray continues, "Reports of peeping Tom drones have quadrupled. It's no longer a hypothetical threat. It's in our back gardens." So how do we move forward? Dr. Eris Thorne, a policy advisor, suggests the solution lies in governance. "There's a fault line in public opinion. We embrace the benefits, but fear the surveillance. The only way forward is with a robust, transparent regulatory framework that the public can trust. As technology races ahead, our laws and our society must keep pace. The question is no longer if the drones are coming, but on what terms."
Yeah, so I think it's really important because it hasn't happened yet.
Well, at my latest Met Engage, which was a couple of weeks ago, our police basically said they'd use drones to actually obviously catch two criminals. To me, this is the whole in the interest of for your safety, for your benefit, for your security, and but all of that always gets abused. And I think if you add everything up together, it's not looking like it's for our best interest, all of these things.
Exactly. This is building that picture to show people, do we actually want this, because they are saying, so the Civil Aviation Authority are, actually mapping out drone flight plus right now in the background. It's not obviously being spoken about, to start utilizing drones. So PwC wrote a document called Skies Are the Limit, and I think they're anticipating about 900,000 drones operating on our skies by 2030, which is unprecedented. So that's just under 1 million drones.
It does feel like a very scary future, futuristic future for us, like we've seen in the movies.
Sci-fi. It's like a sci-fi movie, isn't it? So this is why we have to stop these things. Stopping them at a local level has an impact at a national level, Claire. Seriously.
That's exactly what I believe in. And we have run out of time, Cassie. We have literally run out of time. But that I would have said is the best final note is that, if we can, group up together in our communities and fight these things locally, it would have a national impact, because there's too many infighting and not the whole country can't get on the same side. But thank you for coming on and trying to explain some of that in a bit more layman's terms, because it is very confusing to understand. So that was Cassie from the National Residents Association, sharing her insights and trying to raise those concerns that really do deserve serious consideration. It's important, I think, to remember that technology itself isn't actually the issue. It's the lack of transparency, the accountability and public consent is. Whether we're talking about 5G, smart infrastructure, the digital ID, biometric, facial recognition systems, or the move towards digital currency, these are not small changes. They will fundamentally reshape how we live, how we access services, and how much control individuals retain actually over their own lives. what we've heard, I think, highlights a growing pushback from people who are not anti-progress, but pro-choice, pro-privacy and pro-democracy. People are asking reasonable questions. Who controls the data? How is it used? Who has access? What happens when the system is hacked? And what happens when opting out is actually going to be, or could be, no longer an option? These systems, that they're being introduced as convenient, efficient and unavoidable, but inevitably should never replace informed debate and consent. Once infrastructure is embedded and policies are locked in, reversing them will become nearly impossible. That's why these conversations do matter now, not after the fact. An informed public is not a threat to democracy, it is the foundation of it. If governments and institutions believe that these technologies truly serve the public interest, then openness and honest dialogue should not be feared. Personally, I don't believe it is in the public's interest and are to be put in place merely to serve their own agenda and serve them. But thank you to you, our viewers, for choosing to question, to think critically and stay engaged. This has been Dyer Consequences on Unprecedented TV. I'm Claire Dyer. Keep asking questions, because the consequences of silence, they are far greater than the consequences of speaking out.